Hello and welcome to the Imaging Wire Show. My name is Brian Casey. I'm managing editor of the Imaging Wire. We've got a great episode for you today. Our topic is investment opportunities for physicians. And our guests are Dr. Giovanni Lorenz, Dr. Paul Slosar, and Dutch Rojas. They are all with Physicians Capital Fund, or Ficap. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us today.
Morning, Brian. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Brian.
You bet. So, gentlemen, if we can start with introductions. Giovanni, can you go first and tell us about Ficap and your role at the company?
Yeah, absolutely. Ficap is one of the first that I'm aware of opportunities where physicians get front row seats. An individual like myself, cardiothoracic radiologist, 20 years with a couple different organizations to include academia and outpatient private practice. Very little opportunity to get on the upside of investment opportunities such as venture capital. Now we have that. And so then when the opportunity arrived for me to be representative of some portions of this, absolutely. And I didn't want to keep it for myself. I wanted to share with others. So I am thrilled for this opportunity, Brian, to share this with you and your guests and with everybody else that you reach.
Perfect. Very good. Paul, how about you?
So I'm was a practicing spine surgeon for 28 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of venture capital and private equity in the Bay Area, just as an advisor, a venture partner, bringing deals and vetting deals. I had the benefit of being included in 4 different companies that have had successful exits. And I was always fascinated in my interactions with the doctors, how little opportunity people have had in the medical profession to be involved in venture capital, to understand it, to be advisors to early stage companies. So I, along with Dutch, who will introduce himself in a moment, we're the co-founders of Physicians Capital Fund. And our explicit goal is to, as Giovanni mentioned, bring venture capital opportunities to our physician colleagues, as well as healthcare executives and allied health professionals. It takes a lot of people to bring healthcare to the U.S., but we want to share the opportunity with those people, make good investments, and bring a community of physicians and allied health professionals together.
Very good. Dutch, how about you?
My name is Dutch Rojas. I am the co-founder, as Dr. Slosar mentioned. Look, I've lived all over the world, San Francisco, New York, and the one thing that I learned was physicians wanted to be involved in the startup community. I've started 5 startups, exited 3, and I think this is a fantastic route for them to earn some asymmetrical returns and to be involved. And so we wanted to build it not only to help docs that are practicing today, but to inspire a younger generation to build their investment portfolio using venture capital.
All right. Very good. Well, let's just dive right in and talk about what's going on here. Paul, physicians are, you know, as a physician that doctors are usually more concerned with clinical topics than financial ones. How important is financial literacy for physicians?
Well, there's always been this stigma in the medical community against doctors from sometimes mainly the business community that doctors don't understand finance. Well, you know, if you think about healthcare, we operate in a market. We provide care in a market that is not typically a business-free market, right? Prices are controlled by insurance companies. There's not a lot of experience in that, but doctors are smart. Physicians understand things and they're lifelong learners. So in addition to them understanding the capital flow in startups, understanding how many people have made a very significant income opportunity in investments. Our goal with Physicians Capital is not just to really give them financial literacy on a broad basis, but very specific to the areas and opportunities, capital flow in startups, venture capital, and those who are entrepreneurs. Many physicians are entrepreneurial. They understand the opportunities that might be there. They just don't know how to get in.
Giovanni, what was your experience like as a radiologist? How did you get interested in financial topics?
Yeah, so I loved it because I kind of thought about your statement there that physicians actually don't talk about it too much, more concerned about clinical. But Brian, one of the great things about radiology and what I went through is that the elbow to elbow, the shoulder to shoulder sort of readout that we had, Of course, there's clinical and how to read an image, an MRI exam, or so forth. But I'll be honest, about 50% of what we were talking about was what was wrong with the money, the healthcare, and the being able to deliver it. In fact, a lot of our conversation was why things are the way that they were. And unfortunately, it came down to was just pure economics. So in my area of radiology, we constantly see, because radiology is part of nearly every component of healthcare, we see everything. We see all the good, all the bad, the innovations everywhere else. And I hate to say it, Brian, but a lot of it has to do with how we organize that in terms of fiscal responsibility and opportunity and investments, innovations. So I'm glad that I had that opportunity to see that in radiology. I know many of my colleagues and friends have that opportunity too. Every time when we go and meet with our attendings, we do talk about the money. We do talk about the fiscal opportunities and the innovation. So I'm glad I got now some structure behind that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that is really key, technology is so important in radiology, and innovation is so important in radiology, and that just doesn't spring out of thin air, right? It comes. There's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of investment that has to happen. Would you say that's the case?
Every single time I go jump into a case, interventional radiology, we're trying to figure out how to. I'll be honest, we get razors and we're trying to shape new devices. We're trying to create a better way of doing the imaging to get the diagnostic. That hasn't changed anywhere. And so absolutely, I agree. Every single case has been on that opportunity. And I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Innovation is the way that we make things greater, better, and then also to understand where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, what kind of contributions do you think physicians could make to medical product development? Do you think that they have enough of a role, like in the early stage when products are being conceived at a vendor? Are physicians involved enough?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I've been around for a very long time, more than 20 years. And this is one of the reasons we started the venture capital firm. And more importantly, it's why we started the community. We really wanted physicians to be involved on the early stage. What generally happens is somewhere in the Bay Area, two really smart people, right, went to good schools, say to a venture capitalist, hey, we have this really great idea to transform healthcare. The venture capitalist looks like me, writes him a check for a few $100,000 and says, okay, let's talk again in 3 months or 6 months, right? And let me see the progress you've made. And usually you're making an investment in the two smart people, not really in the business. But what happens is we move through the cycle and we don't see physicians getting involved. I've seen this time after time as I advised lots of healthcare companies. I don't see physician involvement. So that's part of the reason we started the venture fund, is to see more physicians involved in the startup community, because there's lots of little mistakes they make. Like Giovanni just mentioned, you'll see a workflow and you'll know that it's incorrect just because you're a doc. But two people who just went to undergrad and studied, computer science don't know. They have a really good idea, but they don't know the workflow.
Giovanni, what kind of contributions do you think doctors can make?
Well, I love it. Dutch was actually hitting on the point that I was talking about too, which is that very, very smart people are involved in making very, very smart, successful businesses. Absolutely. But we're talking healthcare. And my understanding, my thesis of healthcare is that this is a patient-physician supremacy space, which is you need a patient, you need a physician. And so I'm going to represent the physician standpoint, which is an understanding through grueling number of years, days, works, efforts of privileging, certification, board services, so that I can understand what works and how to deliver that. Now, there are also many, many component layers behind that: regulation, insurances, and cost arbitrage. But I'll tell you, if you don't have the physician on there, you really are standing about 3 steps from even beginning this process within healthcare.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Dutch, when did you recognize the need for a new venture capital fund? You've been doing venture capital for a while here and getting involved in medical startups. When did you kind of have that light bulb moment where you said, hey, I'm going to start a new fund here?
About 3 years ago, I realized, after talking to so many physicians, probably somewhere north of 10,000 physicians, right? We said, look, there's a real need for docs to be involved. And it was kind of this wonderful turning point where we looked and were working with some startups and they were making very basic workflow mistakes. that I only know because I've been around surgery centers and I've been around doctors and independent radiology centers. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. But I asked the question in one of our meetings, have you visited with a physician that knows how to do this? And they said, no. And so then I just kind of, that was kind of the fire starter. And I said, look, lots of young people want to be involved. And then I met some great people like Giovanni and Dr. Slosar and a couple of others. And we said, this is the right thing to do. Like, we have to get involved in this space. No one is going to invite physicians to come be in venture capital. Physicians have to invite themselves and take ownership and take agency. This is really key because doctors sit back a lot of times and you got to just get involved. Like, you want to play basketball, you go to the basketball court and you raise your hand, you say, I'm ready to play.
Yeah. Besides not getting doctors involved early enough in the process, what are some of the other mistakes that you've seen?
Well, I mean, being involved early in the process is essential because the way that you set things up, right? Generally speaking, you have an 18-month burn, right? We'll give you enough money to get through 18 months. Well, if you don't get docs with expertise in there quick enough, you'll burn through the cash before you have an actual solution that you can take to market. So by getting doctors involved early, you've got a real chance to make sure that you've got good product market fit. And on top of that, the nice thing about docs is even if they do come in late, now with our venture capital firm, especially the limited partners, you've got a big group of 99 physicians that can come in and say, we've all taken a look at this app for our practice, or we've taken a look at this product for our hospital. This works if you do it this way, and it doesn't work if you do it this way. This is it's really key to build the community in a way where we're almost having a self-actualization moment. Like, hey, these are things we understand. These are things we know. We can invest in them, and we will all use them to see if they can actually be successful.
So you guys are building this Ficap fund. Paul, can you talk a little bit about the mechanics of the fund and how it'll be structured?
Yes. So it's a traditional 10-year venture capital fund. It has the standard fees. They call this a 2 and 20, which means 2% of the fees go to managing the fund and 20% is called a carry. We can talk a lot more about those terms. They can be a little bit intimidating, but they're pretty basic. It's is described as a vanilla venture capital fund. As we formed this, as Dutch and I were chatting about it and sort of poking holes in it, trying to make sure we would understand who might be good fits, we made the minimum investment approachable for physicians. So the minimum investment to become a limited partner is $25,000. Now, when you're tying up that kind of money for 10 years and you're trying to get, as Dutch mentioned, what we're looking for as a return on investment is asymmetric returns. And this is important for me to put this in as a disclaimer that any investment in Ficap can only be done by accredited investments through investment documents. And any past performance of people's investments, mine, Dutch, anyone else's, is certainly not indicative of future returns. Obviously, the typical legal disclaimers. But that being said, as we've talked to physicians and we've expanded this, so the anchor is the physicians because they make most of the decisions. Most healthcare spending is initiated by physicians. So that's where we will concentrate. But we also know we need healthcare executives. They know about how to run hospitals. We know we need supply chain people because market adoption and scaling these things requires expertise in that area. We need nurses. We need physical therapists. We need dentists, podiatrists. Healthcare is a big tent, and we want to include everyone into it. So the fund, when we talk to people who want to invest, we usually encourage them to invest more. As you think about financial investing, right? We all have a pie of money that we invest. Anywhere from 5 to 10% of that typically should sit in the alternative investment space. And if you look at venture capital as an alternative investment opportunity, it has outperformed the private market or the public markets meaningfully over the last 20 years. So there are a lot of good reasons to get involved from an investment perspective. Many people have exposure to venture capital. We just feel if you're a healthcare professional and you want to reclaim some agency, not only get involved in the fund, the network of the fund, the education opportunities of the fund, and for physicians who might want to consider career transitions after medicine, this is a tremendous opportunity to learn the trade of venture capital with a friendly group, an experienced group of people who have had experience in business.
That's actually a really good point because as you guys know, burnout is a really huge issue in healthcare right now. And I hate to say it, but there are a lot of healthcare professionals that are kind of looking for an alternative career that's still in healthcare, but maybe isn't necessarily clinical.
Yeah, and if I could, Brian, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just to follow on that, that you brought that up, I do want to mention that, many of our physicians push up against their employers, their RVUs. They try to work harder and harder and harder. I feel very strongly that in order, as Dutch mentioned, to seize control of some agencies, some autonomy, move in parallel to medicine, consider working with us in venture, still be a good doctor, because doctors still do well. I mean, don't jump off that ship too early. We need physicians and they do make a decent living, but move in parallel to medicine and move in parallel using us as a platform.
That's a great point. Paul, what kind of investments are you going to be looking at? Is it mostly things in radiology, or is it kind of broader in healthcare? And will you be looking at devices, software? What are you looking at?
Well, certainly radiology is red hot, as I just came from the RSNA meeting in Chicago, and I've never seen a meeting like that. And I go to the big meetings too, but wow, what a meeting. So the not only just the core of radiology or any of these interventions, cardiology, orthopedic surgery, there's this collateral and expanding universe of second and third orbit technologies, platforms, devices. What we will invest in primarily, the easiest way is workflow solutions. There's a lot of opportunity to improve the healthcare delivery system, our office flows, scheduling, supply chain things that can be very easily automated with AI. What we cannot really play in, we'll be raising a $10 million fund. So we will not have checks that will be large enough to do biopharma or medical devices that require a very heavy lift through the FDA. So we'll be working in spaces that involve women's health, radiology and the collateral universe around that, the shift site of service from the hospital to the home, and all the remote patient monitoring and early intervention platforms that are springing up around that. Many of them are very easy to get to market and adopted, as Dutch mentioned, with a group of physicians.
Awesome. Giovanni, what areas do you see as most interesting as a radiologist? What kind of gets you excited?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different crystal balls out there, Brian, right? And we've seen them throughout the last 5-10 years of radiology. But what has consistently been successful is saying that there will be change, innovation. And that's going to occur in the clinical decision support apparatus that supports the radiologist, the physician centricity of delivering that high quality care. That's one of the bigger ones that I think has consistently improved. Replacing me as a radiologist, well, some people made some bets on that, and that hasn't come to fruition. Not to say that's not an opportunity, but I think one of the mainstays of radiology is utilization of high efficiency workflow. So unfortunately, it does take a bit of time to create somebody like me, but there's opportunity then to offset some of that so that my efficiency goes up. So if you deliver a workflow, a program, an enterprise that allows me to do more high efficiency, we're absolutely going to be looking at that. And I think that's been what's successful in the RSNAs both this year and then the last year.
Yeah, for sure. You've got maybe a little bit of a higher level view. What areas of healthcare broadly do you see as being the most interesting?
I like practice management solutions, right? Anything that keeps physicians independent. We've seen a lot of consolidation in radiology, as you know, but I love independent radiologists. I love them working in groups and working in tandem. So any solutions that increase the opportunity for them to stay away from the health systems is something that we're supportive of. And that goes on through all the other subspecialties as well.
Yeah, I think that you'd find a welcome audience for that, because that's something that a lot of radiologists are worried about. Paul, so you were at RSNA, and as you mentioned, AI was red hot there. Any chance that you will be looking at investments in AI developers?
Absolutely. And we're already seeing it. It's very interesting, the deal flow that we're starting to see come in to Physicians Capital. Let me just be clear with the audience. We're raising capital. We want you to come to us and be part of this team. Once, as I made a joke, we're more venture than capital currently. So once we get more capital secured, which is all of us banding together and trusting each other and saying we're going to move as a unit, But the companies that are approaching us, they don't cost that much to get an AI company off the ground compared to a device company or pharma. They often have a significant amount of value that you can bring in very short order to the workflow. So we're seeing everything from the two bifurcations I see in AI and medicine. The easy ways to get in are the workflow efficiencies for the practices, the physicians' efficiency in their day-to-day offices, engagement with the patients, so that I don't have to pull a Post-it note off my computer and decide who gets scheduled, which still happens. We still use fax machines in medicine, which is unbelievable.
CD burners. Yeah.
Yeah. But secondly, the AI, as Giovanni mentioned, that is springing up to help the doctors in clinical decision, not replace the doctors, but help them make the decisions faster, more accurately, and have a much larger repository of medical information at their fingertips. So they can be much more efficient and accurate, bringing the care to the patient. Ultimately, the doctor has to decide, but the companies that are pouring into medicine with AI, the easy ways to get on the base paths are in those two areas.
Very good. Now, we will have contact information at the end, but some of our viewers are probably going to be AI developers and early stage developers. I mean, should they get in touch with you?
Well, we'd like them, if they're actually legit founders, they're going to be using typically their own capital, friends and family, and they're probably not going to be investors or capable of investing at this time. But we do see this ecosystem very sincerely, that I give credit very much to Giovanni and my other general partner, Vipul Kella, about saying it's very important for us to create an ecosystem that harnesses the power of the entrepreneurial physician, the founders, and educates those of us who are not the back of the napkin people, but want to deploy capital and be involved advising, bringing those together. But first and foremost, we need capital. We are a startup ourselves. However, once we're there, that will be a tremendous ecosystem and we will certainly take a much harder look at physician founders and healthcare professional founders, because we think, to Dutch's point earlier, they're going to have already a little bit of a better head start than an engineer and a finance person coming together to solve a healthcare problem.
All right, very good. Giovanni, now we're now in 2025. What can we look forward to from Ficap in 2025?
As Paul alluded to, the successful completion of our fund goals, that's going to be hopefully the sooner than later portion of 2025. Absolutely one thing. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to continue the physician agency. And that's sort of my personal mantra, which is wresting control back into physician autonomy, capability, and responsibility. And when you have those three components, I think it's going to work out very well. So 2025 is going to be my personal take on it, is going to be the year of the physician.
Very good. I like that. I may use that. Paul, how can interested parties get a hold of you?
Well, most of us are pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. So that's an easy way to reach out, direct messages. Please, we would encourage you to follow the Physicians Capital Fund on LinkedIn. We'll be ramping up efforts as it pertains to educating physicians about what we're up to. There's also our website, which is Ficap, PHYCAP, ficapfund.com. There's an easy contact us, message box there. And then obviously any of us, you can get in touch with any of us, as I said, through LinkedIn, and especially the three of us are very responsive. And so we'd be happy to follow up with one-on-one calls, spend some time with you, your financial advisor. But, we're involved. Everyone on this call, not to mention the other general partners, we're all in. This is what we're concentrating on now as the majority aspect of our careers, and we're going to make it work.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul. Well, I'd like to thank our guests today, Dr. Giovanni Lorenz, Dr. Paul Slosar, and Dutch Rojas of Ficap for being with us today. Gentlemen, thanks so much. I really look forward to following the fund and seeing what you guys do in 2025.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Signing off for the Imaging Wire, my name is Brian Casey.